from Mars, Women Are From Venus is a book written by an American author named John Gray, a relationship counselor that has a degree in meditation and psychology. This book is mainly about communication between the two genders, man and woman, and how to understand each other better. The author also dives deeper into the differences in what makes us who we are, how to approach a matter effectively, and what to do during a fight or conflict, how to give love and receive love, and more. This book is written and to be read by both genders so they could comprehend the viewpoint from both sides of the party. It does not only give insight into what it is like to live in a man's world with all its expectations and fulfillment to be as a man, but also as a woman. The author crafts the story from both sides of the recipient so the readers can get a bird's eye view and have insight towards one gender and identity and how to communicate effectively. This book is chosen to be translated for a few reasons. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus has been sold more than 50 million copies since it first published in 1992. It has been translated into 40 different languages, including Bahasa Melayu. The translator, Adli Shamsuddin, mentioned that he translated the source book with the hope that people can understand their partner better. Communication is essential in any relationship, so this book can be a guide for better and easy communication between partners.
Hello everyone, Azmina here. In this book, there are a few translation techniques that we have discovered. I'll talk about the first two techniques and later Amni will continue the rest. The first one is modulation technique. First, we need to know what is modulation. According to Walensky in 2015, modulation exchanges the form of the message through perspective changes. In simple words, change the song stack into another style as long as the message stays the same. We can see from this example where in the original book, it goes like, "This is such a dry season. When it's going to rain." When it's translated into targeted language, it becomes, "Panas betul hari ini, bilakah agaknya hujan akan turun." So, you can notice the modulation technique apply in the sentence, "This is such a dry season," becomes "panas betul hari ini." Instead of literally translated as musim kemarau, the author chose another vocabulary to describe the weather of the day. Although the perspective changed, the meaning of the message is still understandable to the reader. To add more, the literal technique is also used to translate the next sentence where the translator literally translates "when it's going to rain" into "bilakah agaknya hujan akan turun" without changing any grammatical order. To make this more clear, let's see one more example. Okay, so I'm not getting paid enough at work is translated into "gaji saya terlalu rendah." So for this text, the targeted language translated "not getting paid enough" into another point of view, which is also can be translated as "the salary is low" or "not as much as others receive." Instead of literally translating it as "tidak mendapat bayar secukupnya," the translator used the measurement degree to describe the underpaid situation into the targeted language.
Now, let's move on to the next technique, which is the literal technique. The literal translation carries the definition of the direct or literal text transfer from the source language into meaningful and grammatical text in the targeted language. As what the name is, literal means it literally translates without changing the meaning and grammatical order of the sentence. However, there are slight differences between literal and word-for-word translation. According to Wijenshi, Dayanshi and Fernando in 2016, word-for-word translation defines as a method where it protects the word order of source language and is known as interlinear translation. For example, "I like you, saya suka awak." That's word-for-word translation. Okay, now let's see the example from the book analysis. In the source book, it was written as "everyone ignores me," translated into "semua orang tidak mengindahkan saya." The sentence is translated directly according to the word order. Since Bahasa Melayu and English share the same word order, which is subject, verb and object, SVO, it is easier to focus on the literal meaning of the word without need to think about how to reorder the word. Another example is, it is very difficult for a man to differentiate between empathy and sympathy, being directly translated into "memang sukar bagi lelaki membezakan antara perasaan simpati dan empati." In the source text, people can notice how the word arrangement is the same as the targeted text. The word order is parallel with the targeted text, which make it categorized as literal translation. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Next is borrowing. Borrowing is one of the techniques in direct translation. When a language borrows words from another language without translating them, this approach is used. Borrowing is a popular method of translation. It essentially implies that the translator chooses to use the identical term in the target text as it appears in the source language. This is frequently the case when the target language lacks an analogous term. Furthermore, it contains two sorts of borrowing, which are pure borrowing and naturalized borrowing. Pure borrowing is a translation strategy that involves transferring a term from source language to the target language without any changes. The words are taken in their purest form and they appear in nouns. Meanwhile, naturalized borrowing is one of the translator's approaches to align the meaning of the target language to that of the source language by adopting the source language term and then adapting the spelling and pronunciation to the target language. The following examples demonstrate this. The first example is pure borrowing. One of the biggest differences between men and women is how they cope with stress, which means the second example is when Tom comes home, he wants to relax and unwind by quietly reading the news, which means this example were extracted from chapter 3. In order to translate all words from the source language to the target language, this statement employed literal translation. In this case, the issue is not with the source language because it is correctly translated, but with the target language where the author mixed up the target language with one word from the source language to interpret his meaning, which is the word stress, while stress means tertekan in target language. Furthermore, they have words to denote the source language in the target language setting, which is tekanan, but the author didn't use it. The same goes to the word relax, which the author used relax in the target language that's supposed to be translated as berehat. The reason for this, we believe that Malaysians have a habit of blending source language and target language in their conversation, which has become known as rajak language, which everyone believes in common. This condition has occasionally assisted readers in better understanding about what the author is saying. The second one is naturalized borrowing or cultural borrowing. The example is, if he assumes she is asking for advice, then he puts on his Mr. Fix-It hat to solve her problems. That means this example was extracted from chapter 3. The term Mr. Fix-It is in italic because it is considered foreign, indicating that the words are borrowed from the source language. Cultural borrowing is the sort of borrowing used by the author here, in which the borrowed words are comparable to the original words in the source language. Words that fill gaps in the recipient language lexicon because they stand for items or concepts new to the language culture are referred to as cultural borrowing. Despite the fact that the phrase Mr. Fix-It has a Malay equivalent, Encik betulkannya, the author fully embraces the phrase in the target text. The author might want to keep the book's genre of motivation by including words that are easy to be understood by the readers. The next one is transposition. To attain remarkable results, translators use a number of strategies. There are several approaches that can be utilized to improve the sound of the target text. A transposition is one of the most popular translation processes. The transposition approach entails substituting one's word class with another without affecting the source text's original meaning. This kind of translating results in a shift in grammatical structure. There are several varieties of transposition, one of which is a free transposition, in which the usage of the transposition is determined by the context. This example is, he generally picks the most urgent problem or the most difficult. With mean, this example was extracted from chapter 3. This example is an example to demonstrate this translation technique, since transposition shows that it is translated directly from the source language sentence structure. The sentence in the target language will begin with biasanya. However, in order to comply with the target language context and grammatical constraints, sentence structure transposition processes are used to translate the sentence.
Hi guys, so for this part, me and Alka will explain about the review of the translation for the book Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Without further ado, as mentioned before, the translated version of the book uses Bahasa Melayu as the target language, while the source language of the book is English. So from this, we can see that the translated version focuses on the Malaysian, and to our knowledge, not everyone in Malaysia can speak English, and even fewer can communicate English well enough to converse fluently. Perhaps more crucially, language is far more than just exchange of words, since it also reflects one's culture, society, and faith. Hence, translation works have the potential to transport readers to places they have never imagined seeing, as well as to introduce the readers to people they would not have encountered otherwise. This statement can be supported by JOHAN 2018 that stated the transmission of information, knowledge, and views needs a translation. It is vital, it is crucial for effective and sympathetic cross-cultural communication. As a result, translation is essential for social harmony and peace.
A translator have to be aware of the subtle elements that the original author is trying to convey, as well as their lifestyle, culture, and writing. This is crucial since being ignorant towards the original author's writing could lead to a bad translation that may not be able to capture the essence of the book. A translator have the power to change the focal point of the story and rewrite it and stray away from the writer's own experience from the original. Yushchenko 2018 stated that there are many cases where authors and translators are not linear due to them not being able to deliver the exact message of the source language to target language, thus failing to retain its original meaning to the target audience.
Equally important, in our opinion, after analyzing and reviewing the translation work of the book, we can say that the overall evaluation of the translation is exceptionally good because the majority of the sentences meaning in the translated version is identical, as in it is parallel with the English version, which is the original book. With that, one example can be taken is in the second paragraph of chapter 1. One of the sentences written in the source language is, while the translated one, which is the targeted language, is being translated like this. Thus, it can be seen that despite the translated version having a longer sentence structure, the context and knowledge behind that particular sentence remain the same. And after reviewing the translation work of the book also, most of the techniques that have been utilized by the translator are the literal techniques in our point of view.
To add, the translator also takes into account the creative side of the original author. They do not plainly use literal translation that can make readers feel as if the author copy and pasted their work from a third-party translating website like Google Translate. John Gray wrote, "When men and women are able to respect and accept their differences, then love has a chance to blossom." The translator paid enough attention to translate the work for it to depict that creative side by saying, apabila lelaki dan wanita dapat menghormati dan menerima perbezaan masing-masing, maka cinta di antara mereka berpeluang untuk berbunga dan mekar. Despite adding another word to the translated version, it still depicted accurately what the source language was saying. It gave the same amount of creativity and essence as the original work. It feels as if the work is written by human, translated by human, and for it to be read by other human beings, with our flaws, with our emotions and energy, instead of it being computer generated by using Google Translate or something like that.
Using that as one of the frame of reference, it is acceptable to consider that the targeted language used in the translated book is accurate to the original one, and the consistent translation works are indeed able to portray the translator's ability in translating the book, since according to Zainuddin and Awal 2012, translation is the process of transferring meaning from one language to another. The capacity to select the appropriate translation technique is a crucial skill for a translator, and as a result, the translation work on the chosen book is compatible, since it allows readers who are struggling with English to participate in reading this well-known motivating book. All in all, most people believe that translation is a simple task because their previous thinking did not contain the fact that there are translation procedures that must be used and learned when it comes to translating. For your information, also in order for the original text to retain its meaning, many aspects must be addressed during the process, including culture, syntactical structure, fixed terminology, and many others. To relate with our chosen book, it is quite transparent that the translator is doing an impressive job in translating it, since there are some motivational books that are quite hard to understand the exact meaning from the written text. However, However, with this chosen book, the translator has successfully bridged the culture between two audiences since the material are able to be translated accurately. Both messages are clear and both contents are similar in all aspects. Hence, after assessing the worth of the translation, it is understandable that Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus is one of the best-selling motivational books because the content and bits of knowledge are largely straightforward yet insightful, resulting in gaining a broad audience to read such an inspirational book. Thus, this is why the book's translation must be exact as possible in order to reach the reader comprehension of the target language employed in the translation.